we're back with another Fragrantica Talks episode, and I'm joined again by Adam and John. And as the festive season is approaching, we thought we would do a fun little episode today entitled The 9 Scents of Christmas. So we've each brought 3 of the fragrances that we're going to, that either remind us of Christmas or that smell like Christmas or that we're going to be wearing over the festive season to various events and do's and Christmas Day itself and whatnot. And so we're going to be discussing those. And at the end of the episode, we're going to do a little bit of a dive into what's on our Christmas wish lists. And I think some of us might have longer wish lists than others. So yeah, should we launch straight into it? And John, do you want to start us off with on the first scent of Christmas your true love gave to you?
Yeah. I actually that's a nice way to put it, because I was introduced to this fragrance by a very kind Fragrantica member who gave me a sample of this, and I have to admit, years ago. And when I first smelled it, I wasn't sure that I actually liked it. And then it grew on me rapidly. And then I loved it. And this for me is Christmas in a bottle, pretty much. And it's something I would wear on Christmas and have done a couple times. And this comes from the Hermès Elixir series. And this is the one, sorry, the Merveilles series. This is the Elixir de Merveilles. And what I particularly love about this, I'm going to spray a little bit. It's one of those, one of those fragrances that almost makes you feel a little giddy when you smell it. It's that good, and that feeling inducing, or something, happy feeling inducing. It's a smell of oranges, and I always associate the smell of oranges with Christmas for some reason. That's a big association for me. And it has a ton of sandalwood, patchouli, but it's also a very buttery sandalwood. So it goes just a little bit into the gourmand. And I think that bit of the gourmandish buttery sandalwood with the oranges is so unbelievably holiday-ish and beautiful on the skin. But what's a nice counterpoint to this fragrance is that there's also pine and just a bit of evergreen in here as well. And that as a kind of counterpoint to all the smooth, buttery qualities of the sandalwood is it's like this perfect triangle of like a bit of citrus, a bit of sandalwood, and then a bit of greenery. You know, it's really perfect kind of a holiday fragrance. And in this whole series of the various Merveilles, Eau de Merveilles, and the flankers have all been kind of interesting. You know, some have been a little more aquatic, some have been leathery. They're quite easy to get. You know, a lot of shops carry them, so they're not too exclusive or anything. But I would say the Elixir is by far the most bursting with snowdrifts.
Is that something you would wear for like Christmas Day, or is it a nighttime scent, do you think?
To me, it's very much about wearing in the day. It lasts a long time, so it would definitely be something you could put on in the morning and you'd still smell it well into the evening. But it's definitely a Christmas Day kind of a fragrance. Yeah, it's very sunshiny and about something you'd wake up and want to put on when you dress up for an occasion. And I should say that too. This feels more like a special occasion fragrance. It's definitely not an everyday wear, but something you'd wear for special things.
It sounds lovely. I think I have smelled it, but I think it was quite a long time ago. And my memory of it is a little bit hazy. I don't remember the pine so much as the orange in it. But yeah, maybe I need to revisit that one because it does sound lovely.
Yeah, it really is indeed.
The idea of oranges specifically around these holidays is really fascinating. It's like a glimmery kind of note to put on with something of like a sweetness behind it too. So it's a good idea there.
There's the whole Christingle thing though, isn't there? I mean, I went to a C of E school, Church of England school when I was little, and I don't know if they do this everywhere or if it's just a British thing or what, but they give you like an orange that you stud with cloves and sweets, and then you stick a candle in it. So that's sort of that to me smells like Christmas because you've got the orange and the clove and the waxiness of the candle, and I sort of imagine it being, you know, maybe a more refined version of that.
Yeah, that whole idea of that, those are called pomanders, right? Pomander balls, I think we call them here. But
Yeah. Now that you mention it, yeah.
I think pomander is slightly different in that that was to scent against the plague, I think, originally.
Back in the plague days, yes, I remember.
The Christingle's got the candle jabbed into it, so you can't scent your clothes with it. You kind of just carry it. In this church, I mean, like, it's a long time since I've been to like C of E kind of ritual stuff, but yeah, like you kind of carry it in this carol service, I think.
It's
everybody who is in Church of England, and I've completely, murdered that, but that's my hazy childhood memory of it.
It's not surprising that it's a church-related ritual, just because I do feel like there is something kind of self-flagellation related about carrying around a clove-studded orange in your hand and something burning at the top. I don't know. That's just...
Well, it's also got 4 cocktail sticks that you stick sweets on, and then you kind of get to eat the sweets. And the 4 cocktail sticks, I think, was something to do with the Stations of the Cross.
Wow,
I might be completely wrong. As I say, this is all very, very hazy, but that's what I remember. But it smelled amazing.
Yeah, no, that is interesting, because I don't think, well, in the US, I don't think, at least like in a Catholic church, I don't think we had an equivalent to that. But I do remember making like pomanders as a kind of just a thing to do at the holiday time. The other thing also about oranges that's interesting is they show up a lot in things like, it's very Dickensian as like a stocking gift or something that shows up in punch bowls and things like that, So I have that kind of literary association of citrus fruits being kind of a representation of something magical that comes from a very far away place where the sun is, that we don't have right now, which I always kind of liked that, which kind of goes to what you were saying, Adam, as well.
Now that I mention it, I think there is a Serge Lutens perfume based on this concept. I forgive my awful French pronunciation, but de Clous pour un Pelure, which is literally an orange, clove, and nutmeg perfume. And I've smelled it, and there's actually something kind of piney too, that or coniferous at least, that reminds me of, kind of Christmas tree kind of smell. So it feels like maybe it was designed intentionally to refer to one of these rituals, but maybe I'm speaking hearsay there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. So who would like to go next with a fragrance?
Adam, go for it.
Oh, and Gideon too, because Gideon just reached up and tapped me, so now he has to meet the unfortunate fate of being picked up just to say hello. He's got a little Christmassy bow on there, and he hates this, so I'm just going to release him. I'm sorry, Gideon. But you came to me, bud. So here's the thing, I celebrate Christmas, but not in a completely secular way. I'm not particularly religious, and I do want to take the moment just to say that we're saying Christmas here just because it's what we default on, I think. But I think for me, my thinking about this prompt is like just generally this time of year when we're going and seeing people and going to parties and trying to get to the heart of, some of these celebrations and what they mean to us. And to me and my family and my friends, I mean, it's really just an excuse to get together during an otherwise sad time of year. So for me, I tried to think about scents that would just bring me a little bit of, innocent joy, right now, as any longtime viewer of our talks knows, I'm a terrible, miserly person in the cold. I'm not myself when I'm cold. You're not you when you're hungry, kind of thing. And so yeah, that's just where I'm coming from. And so I chose scents that would kind of lift me up for that. So in that respect, here I was trotting my way over to this call here and thinking that I had all of my choices just sort of perfectly aligned. And then I realized that the first one I wanted to talk about has been discontinued and apparently is available in some shops, but oops, it isn't really widely available anymore. So I will talk about what I like about it, and then I will come up with some, I have some here noted, some replacements that kind of achieve similar qualities. So the perfume I wanted to talk about was Une Rose Chypree from Andy Tower. So the thing about this one is that obviously this is the same house that brought us the legendary Amber L'air du Desert Marocain, but something that I think that Tower is equally adept at are these is creating like these thick, dense floral fragrances. The big hitter kinds of florals, not anything too wispy. I'd love to see Andy take a crack at I know he's done lilac before, but even that was kind of a thicker, headier lilac. I'd like to see him do like a freesia, but he's more apt to do like these dense, kind of decadent florals. And so that's something that's interesting about his style. And when I thought of that, around this time of year, I thought it would be really sumptuous and satisfying to wear something that's got a bit more body than I would ever wear during warmer times of the year, and kind of speaks to this idea of being saturated with festivity, being saturated with maybe a little bit of a spiked rum drink. You know what I mean? So I thought of Une Rose Chypree because the perfume certainly fits that description. It's definitely one of the heavier perfumes that I have tolerance for. It's got these semi-powdery notes, which can be dangerous for me. It has this opulence, this dusty treatment of bay leaf and spices that are setting on that complex array of musks and everything else that we know and love about a typical Chypree. But I think it also succeeds in contrasting those heavier notes with that kind of rosy geranium quality and the sourness of bergamot. Again, a typical Chypree structure here, but I think that this sparkly contrast with the heavier base makes for a really great celebrational perfume, particularly something in the cold weather where you're not competing with the extra heat that intensifies the sweetness or the stuffiness of the powdery notes in this. It sort of hits just right once it starts dipping in temperature outside. So I feel like something to wear to your big family get together if you want to maintain some of the control around how many people are getting close to you, honestly.
Nice.
It's a really good one. And then so by the same logic, I would also recommend, I believe Andy Tower's Gardenia Sotto La Luna is also available. It's certainly not the same kind of smell, but it's the same type of decadent texture floral where it has some of that shimmery quality set against a oily, thick wall of scent. And so I think about Gardenia Sotto La Luna in his collection, and I'm pretty sure that's still available. From other houses, I think Papillon Perfumery has Tobacco Rose that accomplishes some of the same thing. And then Amouage Lyric Man, if you want something that skews a little bit more, I don't know, stereotypically masculine.
Could I add another one to that? Because I've smelt this, and personally for me, it does tip into the too much for me. Just my tastes, and I'm surprised you picked it because of the powdery aspect of it. When you mentioned it, I did think, oh, that's interesting, because to me, I would have, in smelling it, I would have thought, oh, I don't think Adam would like this because it has got that powdery facet.
Not
but the
a
one
lot.
I'd add that does something similar. Yeah, I think it must just tip under your threshold. But yeah, the one that I would add, which I think does something similar, is Ducalis by Angela Ciampagna, which has that geranium and rose on a bed of spices and is also very thick and luscious and has that sumptuous, opulent. It sounds a little bit crazy, but I always think the court of medieval kings type scent. It has that real fullness and complete abandon about it. And so I think that's another good, potential alternative for people who are unable to get hold of that anymore.
Yeah, that's a wonderful suggestion. I can't wait to try it. I just got a full sample set of theirs at long last. I know you bring them up a lot, Nicola, so I'm excited to give that one a shot.
I can't wait to hear what you think. Sorry, John.
No, that's fine. I'm interested to hear what he thinks as well too. I was just going to say, Adam, I was thinking it's a completely different perfume, but for Andy Tower and roses, I was just thinking of the Incense Rosé which is an utterly different perfume, but it would just be a beautiful like holiday time fragrance as well. That's one of my very favorites of his, and it has a rose as well, and a kind of an ambery rose. But yeah, it's something I just thought about too.
Yeah, I think that's a natural choice there, John. Yeah, incense is definitely a material or a note that people tend to reach for when the weather gets cold. And I think also something that's interesting about incense, again, I keep on using the word shimmery. I just mean notes that are deeply resinous, but also have that second voice on top of them that are singing something higher. You know what I mean? It's sort of like that duality there. And I think that's why I lean towards something like this, where it was like the first thing I thought of, because it has that sweetness of a resinous quality. It has that overall darker feel that makes it very season appropriate for cooler weather. But then on top of it, it has something a little bit more jovial and bright and like I said, sort of shimmery in texture that makes me think of Christmas time, right? Tinselly things that are glistening but have like an air of something dignified underneath.
That's nice. I like that tinselly aspect. That's nice.
So I believe we're going over to Nicola now.
The third scent of Christmas. So my first selection, but the third scent of Christmas, is from a brand which I have only recently been introduced to, but which I'm really enjoying getting to know, because they're absolutely fascinating fragrances. And this is Night Flower by Eris Parfums. Now, for me, part of the run up to Christmas is going out. And ever since I was old enough to start going out, there would be a night out in the week before Christmas. And it used to be me and my cousin. But that sort of celebrating with friends aspect, it is a big part of my kind of Christmas traditions. And this year, one of the things that I'm doing is going to a gig with where a bunch of my friends are playing a load of Christmas songs. And I think this is a really good and interesting fragrance to wear to something like that. It has that kind of that sumptuousness that you've talked about already, Adam, that kind of it being a special occasion fragrance. But Night Flower, it's bergamot, birch tar, cardamom, suede, tuberose, cinnamon, patchouli, tonka, and musk, and it's Antoine Lee is the perfumer. It has it's a dangerous floral, I would say. So it's a floral that, if you imagined the flower that it's trying to conjure, it would be like a Venus flytrap. And, somebody or something is going to fall into this Venus flytrap and get eaten. It's got that kind of slightly prehistoric floralness about it. It's got a slightly animalic like whisper, but it's not too much. I struggle with things that are too animalic, and this is sexy rather than aggressive. There's something quite almost appley green about it, but that lurks in the background, and that feels like the bait. The kind of, look how appley green and sweet this fragrance is. I mean, apple's not listed. It's just something I pick up, and then you get close to it and it goes, "Wow, I've got you." It's a floral with teeth. It's a floral that might be poisonous, but is certainly dangerous. And it's quite sexy, and it's quite going out. It's a very going out fragrance. Sultry, exciting, thrilling. And yeah, it's intriguing, and I really like that about it. I've liked quite a lot of the Eris fragrances, and this one is, it's definitely hitting something around that. Yeah, let's go out and celebrate, but just be careful.
I love that idea too, and that sounds so on brand for Eris and Barbara Herrmann's like whole kind of, point in making fragrances, and also the way she kind of likes to dip into the more dare I say, like a word that comes to mind is the almost slightly burlesque aspect of fragrance in a way, like our older world kind of sense of like sexuality and expression and stuff. And I like that there's also this aspect of night. Like I don't picture a lot of her fragrances being daytime wears. Like they seem much more nighttime wear. But I like to, what I love is that sometimes when we think about holiday fragrances, they're a little bit too syrupy, sweet, or but holidays are like, there is a place definitely for just like being out with your friends, and I like that you're thinking about that, and that sounds like a fantastic match for that kind of a point of view event, reason for going out. And I mean, that is part of the holidays. It's not just about family and coziness and the hearth.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's something about that celebratory aspect, isn't there? And that celebration, it can be with family for sure. But I think you do a slightly different sort of celebrating with your friends. I think it might be, with your family, you're sort of celebrating the fact that you're all still together, maybe with friends, or remembering loved ones that people have lost, that sort of thing. With friends, it's slightly more rambunctious. It's slightly more devil may care. It's slightly more, go on, let's have a snowball. So yeah, and I think there's a place for both, like you say, absolutely.
Oh, that sounds really good. I really like that.
So John, I think you're the fourth.
I am fourth day of Christmas, and this is an interesting one in that it's somewhat new to me, and I'm familiar with perfumes made by the perfumer involved, but this is a new house for me, and I want to make sure. So the name is V Canto, but I want to be careful here if it's not five Canto or fifth Canto, as people who refer to Latin or musical type notes often do. So forgive me if it's actually five Canto and not V Canto. The name is Irae or Irae. It's a Latin, and I never Irae, Irae, I want to say, or Irae. Any event, it is a really interesting kind of a mixture of, and I guess this is what make holiday fragrances for me. This is a very aromatic, green but rich. It's cacao. It's got some wormwood. There's spice. There's coriander. There's palisander wood. There's this little bit of oak in here. And what I really like about this fragrance, and this was also a blind buy for me because I just wanted to find out about this brand, and a good blind buy, obviously, is that it operates sort of with a deep richness at the bottom of woodsy, greenery type of things, a bit of a middle area of spice, which is touching on the gourmand. And then at the top, there's really just the basic, very basic hint of maybe a bit of bergamot or lemon or something up there. But the whole impression is one of walking into a marketplace, a Christmas market. Like I remember in Paris, that they have those great Christmas holiday markets where there's just, God, vin chaud and like all those crazy soaps and like all of that stuff and fresh hay, and you're almost being assaulted by all of these smells. And it's a lot like this. It's like the wafting air of like all of these different holiday smells kind of coming at you at one time, but you're just sort of safely at a distance, and it's sort of trickling in along with a couple of chimney, a little bit of like incense from chimneys, chimney smoke. So I think what I enjoy is it's kind of it's that culmination of all of it, but it also feels like it when I wore it, it just very gently fades out. So it's a bit linear. It's one note, but it just kind of goes out slowly over time. So it's sort of like taking a train into a city and then taking it back out again. It's got that sort of like feeling of time, the passage of time as well involved, which is really quite beautiful. But I really would recommend this as a really nice Christmas wear. Again, it's Irae by V Canto or Five Canto. Excellent holiday-ish type fragrance and kind of episodic. and yet it still plays out this one kind of big bushel of Christmassy type smells all together as one.
You've sold me on it. It sounds really nice.
It really, it's quite lovely, and it definitely gives me a I guess what I'm realizing I look for in some of these seasonal smells is something that does sort of, I don't get very nostalgic about perfume, I have to say generally, but I think at holiday time I get just a little bit nostalgic, and it does, I want to recapture a little bit of some good past memories or times where I felt like I tapped into something a little bit more culturally eternal, like a lot of these smells of like burning, fires in fireplaces and, and things that maybe people smelled hundreds of years ago. Like I like that kind of sense of like cultural continuum, and this feels like that when I'm smelling it. Yeah. Adam, I think you're up next.
Okay, I must ask for your forgiveness because I just realized that I am missing a key piece of attire for this recording, and I just have to. It has a tie-in, I promise. I'll edit this in post. Once I just grab it.
Actually, I wish we'd keep this part in. This would be very funny.
Just like kind of speed it up so you get to see him like wiggle off.
He comes running back in. Whatever could he be? Is he going to be wearing a special hat?
It's going to be a hat, isn't it? A little Christmas hat.
Probably so. A Santa hat, maybe? Yeah. Or
I did wonder if we had a Santa hat, but I don't think we've got one. I used to have one that the cat wore. Like a little tiny one to put on the cat.
It's so adorable. Yeah, I was gonna, I meant to ask you, Nicola, like, what is it like now? So I'm occasionally still getting. Oh wait, what are you?
Okay, here we go. In all of its glory, my holiday sweater.
It's a very nice holiday sweater, by the way.
I can only imagine the types of things you were just saying while I was gone, but I've returned. And in the meantime, I'll probably have to like edit some kind of jingle bell tune into the space there. Anyway, I'm back with a different sweater because it's holiday sweater, and so here's the thing. One of my prompts for this was to pick a scent that you want to spray on a sweater like this. I don't know. That might be a little like, silly of me, but I think that's a perfectly legitimate fragrance milestone of the year when it gets cold enough where you're just like, yeah, I'm probably going to have to spray a little bit more than I normally would because it's so cold outside. And it's not like that weather is like happening for me right now. But by the time Christmas is here and done with, and like you're looking at New Year's, here in my part of the world, it starts getting cold enough to feel that way for me anyway. And so I start to think like, okay, I'm going to treat fragrance differently. I'm going to spray maybe a little bit more than I normally would. Not in excess, but enough to stand out and cut through a little bit of the cold and all these layers of clothing. And then eventually it reaches a level of cold where I just want to spray something on top of some of the clothing on a sweater because it sticks around pretty well. It doesn't have the same like enormous projection as stuff tends to have when I wear it on skin. It kind of like sweaters tend to, for me anyway, they tend to dampen the sense projection, but pleasantly so. And so, I just need something that I can put on top of all the clothes that I'm wearing at this colder time of year. So I went with something that is kind of like cozy, it's where I can spray a bunch of it on. It's not going to project super loud. I could put some of it on a sweater and feel like that's kind of accomplishing that pragmatic approach. So I recently tried a scent by this somewhat newer line called Scents of Wood, called Patchouli in Rye. And this house is sort of known for aging their perfumers' alcohol in wooden barrels, different types of wooden barrels, and that each impart their own kind of character to the alcohol. And then they use that alcohol, as scents normally do, to dilute the perfume blend. In this case, I think most of their line is in EDP format. So you might be tempted to think that this is really kind of kitschy or something of a gimmick. And I could understand your reasoning if you didn't know the house's work, but actually the result is pretty bona fide in terms of, accomplishing a sense of woodiness to me that is actually really unique in the world of woodier perfumes. And it's not to say that every single one of their fragrances is excessively woody. They have quite a large range of scents and scent profiles. But I think the proof is really in the pudding with this house. And they have a variety of woods and perfume note blends that they use. And I think one of my favorites right now is this Patchouli and Rye perfume. And I think it's a brilliant choice for the holidays if you enjoy patchouli. The kind of hint is in the name there. There is sort of like a thicker, almost bready kind of style of patchouli in this perfume, but it's not particularly sharp. It doesn't have any of that like dank, minty earth quality. It's a little bit more skewing towards like the thicker headspace, almost Ionone like patchouli. Which, again, one of these scents that normally I wouldn't lean towards something that's super Ionone heavy, but in the winter and if applied in a specific way, I really enjoy it. So something that is really interesting about this to me is that it immediately made me think of like that the hygge concept, right, or the cozy kind of concept that is kind of one in one with this time of year, no matter what holiday you celebrate. It's sort of a well-constructed patchouli note with light doses of florals. Again, another thicker floral with some body like rose. And there's like a geranium hint, but that might also just be the result of rose accords having geranium-like constituents. And there's also some nutmeg, a little bit to add some spicy contrast. It's not a particularly intense or complicated scent, but it's a really beautiful one, and it's all sort of sitting on this like blankety, woody, tobacco like toasty note, and it's definitely one of those, again, cozy scents that you want to spray in a sweater. And to me, that's half of what this season is about. It's about sort of combating the cold with something that's sort of like and combating the fact that the days are so short and it's a little seasonally depressive. With things that are excessively bright and comfortable and happy and sort of in a display of rebellion almost, right? You're kind of happy against yourself, even if inside you're crying. You're just saying, no, darn it, right now it's the time to be joyful. So I like that about this season, and I like that about this perfume. It's very just comforting, and I think we all need something like that during a otherwise potentially stressful time of year. So that's why I'm suggesting it. I do think, though, that I should quickly shout out to some other perfumes in this really unique line. I like patchouli scents, and I know that many people don't. So I just wanted to quickly say this line has a few gourmands and some leathers that might be more appealing to you. They have something, if you really like sweeter gourmands, plum and cognac, oud and calvados, and bread and chestnut. Very delightful original gourmands, and that's coming from a person who doesn't typically lean towards the gourmand space. So I think it's a really interesting line, great for this time of year, very comforting. There's some like a natural quality, and I don't like saying that, right? I don't like saying natural quality because what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. But I guess what I mean to say there is just that you can tell that they have treated the carrier solution in something. Again, I want to stress this whole idea of aging the alcohol that's used to carry the perfume blends. It's not really a gimmick. Like the after effect is very textural, and it softens the composition in a very interesting way. So if you are a fan of whiskey, if you're a fan of wine, I think you'll get kind of a kick out of that in and of itself. So I wanted to suggest that whole line, but specifically Patchouli and Rye or any of those gourmands that the line has are really wonderful for this time of year.
And sounds great. And I really like the idea of the bread and chestnut, because I think when we were talking about notes we'd like to smell more of, bread was one of the ones that came up. So
that's right. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
Adam, when they treat the alcohol, from what you know, do they put particular for each fragrance, is there a specific wood that's used for that fragrance, or is it?
Yeah, so the way their naming structure of the scents works is that they'll have the first part of the name, in this case patchouli, It refers to the main accord of the blended concentrate of the perfume. And then the second word, what it is in, is literally the type of wooden barrel, whether it's oak, whether it's chestnut wood, whether it's other types of wooden barrels that they aged the perfumer's alcohol in, that they then dilute the fragrance with. So it's a really interesting concept. I've never seen anything like it before. And again, you'd be tempted to think that it's kind of a gimmick, but not in my opinion. I think it actually works pretty well.
Yeah, no. That is interesting, because one thing my friend perfumer Michael Nordstrom had said, how he had I don't remember who had told him. It might have been Jean-Claude and Elena when he was lecturing. He said something like, there should never be anything wasted in a formula. So anything, even if it's the alcohol, if you can make something, every piece in there should have a smell quality to it. Like, you should never just put fillers and everything. So if you can take the alcohol and give that a smell as well too, that's positive, do it, right? Which that sounds like a great opportunity they're taking there, instead of
Absolutely.
just like filling it up with more, like kind of diluting instead of actually infusing that with more smell. That's pretty wild.
No, it's really fascinating. Yeah, I really like that about this brand.
That's really cool.
So we're on to Nicola again.
Yeah.
So this one, I've gone to the opposite end compared to, the kind of gravitas of Night Flower. I've gone to something which is fun and much more sort of cookies and powdered sugar and, the bright, almost, I suppose, kitschy, nostalgic side of potential Christmas holiday scents. And this is one that I think will wear very well during the day over Christmas. And it's Mystic Sugar by a brand called Coreterno. Again, a relatively recent discovery for me. I found them, or I first, got to smell them at Essence this year. And Mystic Sugar is sweet, vanilla-y, super, but it's got this kind of bright and dancing quality. So it's kind of sparkly. So it's not stodgy, heavy vanilla. It's very light, it almost like fizzes off your skin when you wear it. It gives you that shimmer. And it reminds me of the smell of maybe dusting cookies fresh out of the oven with icing sugar. That kind of, like, it is powdery, but sweet, very comforting, very, very easy to wear. And I picked it partly because it's my hot tip for a fragrance that is about to start getting momentum and develop its own hype train. It's got that sort of very, very wearable. You can wear this and it's distinct, and people will say, "Oh, what are you wearing?" It's noticeable. It projects really well. It's relatively simple smelling, which I think on days where you just want something, kind of quite comforting, but not too demanding to wear, I think this would work very well. Part of Christmas for me is, and it's a scheduled day next week. I'll be sitting in my joggers and my, I don't know, Americans, I think you call them sweats. Do you call them sweats? Like comfy clothes, my comfy clothes, comfy warm clothes. I'll have Winnie on my knee and we'll be sat watching Christmas movies. And this is the perfect fragrance to wear for that. It's got that, I think you could also spin it as a party fragrance, but that is where I'll be wearing it. Comfort, coziness with the dog, cup of tea, and the powdered sugar, the mystic powdered sugar of a couple of cookies, and it'll be lovely.
That was fantastic. I like the kind of the story that you wove at the end there of the personal cocoon almost.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also picture that you could wear, from how you described it, as something that you could actually wear when you're out shopping and something, and it's kind of bubbly and there's lights and things.
Yeah.
And It also
Yeah,
has
absolutely.
sounds pretty effervescent almost.
It is, yeah. And I think it's a very, I don't know if it's almost a backhanded compliment to say it's got a youthfulness about it, but it does. It feels optimistic. It feels energetic. It feels full of promise somehow, as well as having the soothing quality of the vanilla. So I think it's quite an interesting scent and a fun scent, and it has a playfulness to it that I really like. And when I smell the brand, it wants out. Yeah, that's really very, very, and I don't mean this as an insult to it at all, but very commercially viable. You know, it's one of those scents that feels like it just hits something that a lot of people of all genders will find it being the sort of thing they can pick up and wear and enjoy wearing and get compliments for wearing. So yeah, I think it's a very successful fragrance in that sense.
Nice. Sounds great.
Yeah. Back over to you, John, for number 7.
Yeah. So it's interesting, your choice. This is my third, actually, right? So I've chosen something that's a little bit similar to what you've chosen, because I don't want to be too stodgy here or too, I don't know, just stuck in the past or, whatever. But this is also, I think, a very accessible fragrance, but it's also very festive and very sweet as well too. And this is a brand some people really love. This is Comptoir Sud Pacifique, which it has tons and tons of very yummy fragrances, and they tend to be they make a lot of sun products and skin products as well, and their fragrances are very good price points as well. This is their fragrance called Rhum. Rhum and Tabac. And it's not a lot more than that. It is rum and tobacco. What I like about it though is that it's a very light treatment of those. This isn't one of these like really ponderous, deep kind of like guy sitting in an overstuffed leather chair kind of rum and tobacco. This is much more like an island treatment of maybe your idea of rum and tobacco. And it's very light. It's a very light wear. It's really sweet. It's got a nice dose of a clean kind of patchouli in here. The rum is like a light sort of Puerto Rican style rum and not necessarily like a really dark Cuban kind of rum. There's just like a little bit of lime at the top. So it's got that's maybe it, is it almost feels like a festive punch bowl or cocktail kind of smell, and something that you would wear to a party, almost like an office party or like on a Christmas Eve party that starts like in the late afternoon or early evening. And it's very optimistic and very bright, and to borrow a word that's been used here, tinselly, like it's got lots of glittery moments as it's kind of and very happy. It's a very happy fragrance. I wanted to kind of end my groupings with something that was a little less less serious, and I think this is a really good one. And again, because their price points are they're really affordable perfumes. They also have some nice small sizes as well. I think Rum and Tabac is a great option for someone who wants to, I wanted to add too that not all people like to wear, we all live in fairly colder climates. Some of our readers and viewers, they live in places that remain pretty warm most of the year. This is a good option for someone who, wants to maybe dip their toe into the more traditional Christmassy kind of things, but they live somewhere where, like those perfumes are really heavy for that. And I think this kind of is the best of both worlds in a way. It's a lighter take on those sort of tropes of the heavier themed smells, but done in a lighter way. Yeah, this is my third. And I think we're on to you again, Adam.
Yeah, well, no, I was just thinking a little bit about that. Yeah, I think it is important to say that, like, we should include perfumes that are good for areas where it is still quite warm, in December. And I guess my last pick, now that you mentioned that, John, is suitable for that. Another thing we should say is that, again, we say Christmas as a placeholder word just because, we have to acknowledge, I think, that there is something kind of not so much religious based or even cultural based about the term Christmas now, as much as there is something just like descriptive about it. There are so many things that it can mean. Sure. And I think one of those things is sort of that sensation that we've all brought up a little bit so far, that sensation of needing something that is peaceful, needing something that is easy to reach for, and fulfills a relaxation or self-care need in a way. And I think we could all use more of that when the year ends, because for reasons related to work, for reasons related to just the idea of like, oh, wow, another year is over. That can be sort of an overwhelming realization sometimes. And I think that that's another excuse to think about perfumes in this way and to use like this time setting of the year, if anything else, to think about fragrance. And I was thinking about that while figuring out what my last pick was going to be. And I landed on something that I'm sure many people already kind of consider kind of a holiday scent already. It's Burberry London. It's kind of a no-brainer to me. The official title is Burberry London for Men, but I kind of hesitate to say the full name because I think this is truly for anyone, as all perfume is. But this is a well-documented holiday where, like I said, and for good reason, the combination of oak moss and Papanax and guaiac wood in this turn into this almost new accord of something that smells to me a little bit Christmas tree-like. It's a little bit coniferous and forested without leaning into like that rough and tumble forest accord that's becoming more popular. It's not really an outdoorsy quality. It's to me, it's about the scent of being inside. It's about the scent of maybe it's maybe more akin to a holiday candle than it is to a Christmas tree that you just chopped down outside. It's also about just the scent of being warm and relaxed inside, maybe after the party's over. I think this is a great scent to wear to a party. I can't honestly identify any of the scents that we've talked about tonight, though, as being inappropriate for party as opposed to a different purpose. But with that being said, I think this is, to me, more of a tranquil smell, more of a well-rounded, blended such that nothing really pokes out kind of smell. We've all chosen, I think, tonight, with some exceptions, some perfumes that, they have like a very telltale note. Whereas I think this is more of like that designer scent kind of style where all the edges are rounded. And that sometimes is not a good thing for me and my tastes, but I think it serves a wonderful purpose here in this perfume. Again, it's very peaceful smelling to me. It's clean and easy wearing with just enough of that kind of cinnamon-esque spice to make it scream holidays without leaning too far into that. It's a little non-committal in that respect, but if we're relating it back to the holidays, then sometimes there are some holidays where I am eager to go out and do as many things as possible. And then there are some parts of the same time of year where I feel very non-committal myself. So I think I can relate to this fragrance in that respect. There's also sort of, side note, a really interesting nuance of like a mulled wine or cider that I find enjoyable about this. But again, it's pleasantly reserved. And again, just no harsh corners, nothing too blatant of any kind about this scent other than just like this not too sweet, almost coniferous, almost spicy, almost wine-like mishmash of a beautiful scent in and of itself. And I don't have anything else to say about it. I think you can find it for a song in both retail and online discounter settings. And if you like the idea of any of the qualities that I've described here and you haven't smelled it, I really recommend it. It's an easy to love, easy to reach for perfume that's good for any particular occasion during the holidays.
Mm.
Yeah, I was. oh, sorry, Nicola.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say that I recall when I first smelled London for Men, there's those occasional sort of more designer mainstream fragrances, and there's a number that smell quite alike, and there are those few that you smell, they're like, there's something to this that stands out. And that one in particular, there's this smokiness that I love, because it's not smoke and it's not incense and it's not like an overwhelming by any stretch smokiness, but just a little hint of smokiness to it that sets it apart, which is so nice in that particular scent. And when you smell it on other people, it's like, oh wow, that, I'm so glad they're wearing that and not something else, of the many things that I would. It's a really nice scent, and you're right that it's got just enough of the right things to make it appropriate for this time of year. I mean, particularly appropriate for this time of year. It's a really good choice. Really good choice.
And Nicola, we move to you. Have you smelled London by any chance? I'm curious. I'm not asking you because you're British. I'm asking you because I'm curious if you smelled this.
I have smelled London, the city. No, I don't think I have. No. I can't call it to mind if I have anyway.
It'd probably be up your street. Yeah, it seems that way. It has some really cozy qualities that I think you can relate to. So anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, on to my last pick, which is one I did mention in a previous episode, but well, I started off by thinking that I was going to be super original and describe this scent as tinselly before I started chatting to you both, and you've both stolen my metaphor, so thanks for that. But it's Tonka Bodycon by Pierre Guillaume. Well, one, because I had to have a Pierre scent in there, and two, because it does. So I love tinsel, right? But yeah, I do love tinsel. And people tell me that it's tacky, and I have decades-long arguments with people where I try and extol the virtues of how great tinsel is. One of the things I love about tinsel is the way that it smells. And I know this is weird, but go and sniff your tinsel. It smells fantastic.
Now that sounds like a fake British insult if I've ever heard one. Go sniff your tinsel.
It is now. And yeah, and this fragrance, which is relatively new, has that shimmery quality that we've talked about. It's got the ambery rum that you mentioned in one of your fragrances, John. It's got tonka beans, so it's got a lot of sweetness. It's got apple, honey, vanilla, pistachio, and benzoin. It's got a lot of the things that I associate with Christmas, like the kind of dried fruits, sticky sweetness. But then what I think is really lovely about it is, when you've overindulged over the Christmas period, and then somebody gives you something like an apple or broccoli, and your body kind of goes, oh, thank goodness, we're not eating sugar anymore. This could be really stodgy and really sweet and tooth hurty as a scent, but then Pierre's put this apple in the middle that just goes whoosh, and the apple is bright and green, and it has this verticality that lifts the whole scent up and stops it being sugary and low and sticky, and gives it this life that is like the lights sparkling off the tinsel. It gives it that, it's not dull and one-dimensional. It gives it that glimmer, that sort of excitement. And I will be wearing this on Christmas Day because I think it just fits. What I really hate sometimes is when in the middle of summer, brands will release a really, kind of dark, dense scent. And I think if you put this out in autumn, when we're thinking about that, whereas I think with the timing of the release of Tonka Bodycon, whether it was luck or judgment, I don't know, but there was something about it hitting at the right point. It is kind of autumnal and wintry, and it has that festive quality. And it feels like a going out scent, but a celebratory scent and a sparkly scent and a tinsely scent. And so for me, it came out at just the right point in the year that it smells like Christmas to me. And so, yeah, it's going to be my Christmas Day wear, is that for sure.
Yeah, that sounds... I like that, what you just explained, that sort of juxtaposition of the density, but then that idea of that like kind of sharp wet fruit kind of, like that apple note coming through. That sounds amazing.
It's cleverly done, I think. And I don't think you would necessarily, as a layperson, you wouldn't, or a non-perfumer, you wouldn't necessarily expect it. And I think that's where some of the joy is. You kind of go, oh, okay, I see what he's done there. That's really interesting. But yeah.
So is it time to run through our wish lists, what we hope to see in our stocking?
Yeah, let's.
Man. Well, look, I think we should begin with you, Nicola, because I think you've collectively made our mouths water describing that fragrance. And now I'm kind of curious to know if your pick for, your theoretical wish list here, or maybe your real one, is anything related to Tonka Bodycon? Because I know you already have a bottle of it. So what's on your wish list?
So there's quite a few things on my wish list. I don't, as a rule, ask for or receive perfume at Christmas, because people are just like, oh God, that's your thing. I'm not touching that. So I think it will be a gift to myself, but it will be from the following. Well, actually, when I came to write and really sort of sit down to think about what do I really want, some of these fragrances are quite old. They're ones that have been around for a while, and they're ones that I've smelled and probably reviewed, and they've stuck with me and they've kind of haunted me. Do you guys ever get that, where a scent haunts you?
Yeah.
And these are ones that, or some of them are ones that have really haunted me. So my ultimate absolute scent that if somebody gave it to me at Christmas, I would probably love them forever, is Narja by Vera Profumo. It's discontinued. Vera Kern's sadly no longer with us. It's an absolutely amazing scent, and I would love a bottle of it. I've only got tiny little testers of it, but it's superb. Bottles were going for hundreds of pounds because it was discontinued, or because the brand, sort of closed with Vera's death. But it's a superb fragrance, and I would love to one day. That's my unicorn. One day I will own a bottle of that, but not quite yet. I need to save up a little bit for it. Anyway, other things that are on there: Sucre de Ebony, Pierre Guillaume. I smelt it years ago. I smelt it again recently this year. It's just really good, really comforting, and really lovely to wear. Similarly, Ilangara by Phaedon. Beautiful fragrance.
That's a great house.
Yeah, really good. And that fragrance just haunts me. I think about it, and I imagine myself frolicking through meadows wearing it. It's got that kind of bucolic quality to it. Hammersmith Tea and Biscuits from 4160 Tuesdays. Love tea, tea fragrances like you do, Adam, and I think I need a bit more tea in my life. And then St. Julep, Imaginary Authors. I've been promising myself a bottle of that for a while, and I think it's probably time. And then
I have some excellent news for you. I can make your part of your holiday wish list come true.
And then finally, Scorpio Rising, Eris, which I've talked about before, is one of the fragrances from the brand that the first time I smelled it, my jaw hit the floor. It blew my socks off, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" So yeah, that's my wish list.
That's nice.
6, 7 on there.
How about you, John?
I'd have to be a very good girl to get all those.
As Nicholas said, people don't really buy me fragrance stuff, although they just assume, you're getting your own things for yourself. And so I guess that I've made some steps though toward getting something on my list, which was, I was so interested in the J Scent catalog that you mentioned, Adam, that I got the big sample kit, and I've been working my way through it. Fascinating perfumes, and I've said, I'm going to pick one or two that I really like and get full bottles, because there definitely a couple in there that I really like. Particularly one called Soap Paper, I think it's called, which is crazy. And soapy and interesting, and I love. I think or paper soap maybe it's called. But anyway, so that's one. I'm really glad what you mentioned, what you did, Nicola, about like almost going back into your past about some past obsessions, because there are two that I smelled very early when I started coming back into fragrance, and when I started writing for Fragrantica, and I was sort of exposed to these perfumes, and they had a really big impact on me. And they're a little pricey, and I wasn't the kind that definitely made you step back and say, whoa, I don't have budget for that. But I keep smelling the dwindling samples I have and saying, I really ought to buy them. And they're also really unusual and kind of weird. And they're both very oud based. So they were made kind of in the height of the oud craze, but I really like these. One of them is even, I wouldn't even say it's a pleasant perfume. It's just like pure difficult oud, which is a fragrance made by a house called Chemi, or I think it's called Chemi Blending Magic. And I've written about this. It's called Ilm, I-L-M. And it's just, the only notes they list are 3 different kinds of oud. And it's just, it's almost difficult. It's so oudy and strong, but completely fascinating. So I would love to own a bottle of that. It's just a matter of like biting the bullet and making the purchase. Another is from a company called, it's a little bit cheesy name. It's called Soud or Soud, S-O-O-U-D, which makes some very beautiful kind of oud-based fragrances, and one called Femme, F-A-M, which is just gorgeous, like an absolute gorgeous fragrance, which I would like to get. Another thing I really was interested in is I'm a big fan of the candles made by Trudon, and they a couple of years ago decided to delve into fragrance making. They made some really nice fragrances as well. They were primarily known for just their candles for a long time, and one of them is called Mortel or Mortel, M-O-R-T-E-L, which is a beautiful peppery perfume, which I would love to get. And I think the only other thing that I would mention is that I smelled and I wrote about one of the great series that happened over the past year was the Potager kind of garden scent series that L'Artisan Parfumé made this year. And there's a lot. I think there's about between 5 and 7 of them or so. And they're just so beautiful. And there's a lot. And I certainly didn't buy all of them. I only really own one. A lot of I just smelled samples of, but they were so interesting. And there's a couple I thought, I wouldn't mind if I got those in a stocking. That would be pretty nice. They really just bright, fresh, like snapping celery kind of perfumes, and I need a little bit more of that in my life, So that's where I think my list is. How about you, Adam? Let's...
I exercised restraint. I just have 2 things to mention really quick, and they're actually both made by the same brand. One of them is interesting to me because it is a candle. It is the Dark Galleon candle from Arquiste. And this is something I just smelled freshly from their booth at Scent Explore in New York City. And I'm not the most faithful of candle burners. Like, I like them a lot. So when I get a candle, it's really special to me because I'm just like, oh boy, like it's like a sort of like an interesting kind of gift. If I had to fight the instinct to like impulse buy it too, because I was like, it was a spicy little like musky thing, very intimate in its style. It's black pepper, saffron, cardamom, sandalwood, and coffee, and this very interesting like layered effect, at least from smelling it just out of the jar, and just really compelling for this time of year, especially if you're shut in on a snowy day. Really nice. And the other from Arquiste that I'd mention is just indigo smoke. It's something I've already spoken about at length. It's something that I'm putting on my best of the year list, and it's just really stunning. Great tea scent. I put it in my tea roundup as well. A dark tea scent with some teeth behind it. That's all I want to say about it because I've written about it in other places, but really interesting scent there. And I'm happy that they made something a little daring in the tea realm.
Yeah. Another great brand too. Arquiste is great.
Super brand, yeah. Well, I think you made me and John look quite greedy there. Quite frankly.
Not my
You did,
intent,
I
but
know.
oops.
I'll be happy with my two things. Yeah, exactly.
But we'd love it if viewers and readers would share your wish lists with us in the comments. We'd love to read them. And yeah, be really interested as well to hear what people do get in their stockings on Christmas morning, if they've been good girls and boys. So I think we can probably sign off by saying thank you so much to our listeners this year, and we wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Indeed. And it's great to talk to all of you. And I do hope to see some great comments about what people are hoping to get as well.